Welcome everyone. It's good to have you all virtually. I know it's an adjustment. I attended a training for hospice, grief in the time of COVID, and it made the very important and challenging insight that the physical distancing, I invite everyone to stop saying social distancing, because our words are spells, and whatever word we use programs our brains. It is physical distancing, and our physical distancing is actually increasing our social reach, because we humans are very annoying and dumb. More on that later. So, the whole you don't appreciate what you have until it's gone. I read bedtime stories to my children way better when they were 30 miles apart than when they're with me. So super interesting how human nature works. And this training made the point that physical distancing is cutting off at the knees. It's really challenging our ability to comfort each other and support each other. And so we need to get very creative and make plans for when we can give each other a hug. And so I applaud the creativity. A little bit more about myself. As I think it was Aaron who said, I'm a humanist chaplain at prison and hospice. And when I felt my call to ministry, again, as a humanist with no supernatural beliefs, I felt that I needed to serve among the imprisoned and dying, because the imprisoned and dying is where religion, and especially the myth of the afterlife, does the most work. And I take a very functionalist approach to religion. In fact, I did my PhD program under Bart Ehrman, who's a very famous New Testament scholar. And in 2006, I bore my testimony to him because I was still Mormon at the time. And I love that I still stand by that faith statement, which is, if God exists, God communicates to us through our psychology and sociology and physiology, our brains, bodies, and groups. Or even if there's no traditional God, we are evolved in such a way, our psychology, sociology, and physiology, to believe in God. And so I have found that by focusing on that functional intersection of religion and human nature, I can minister in a way that benefits pretty much everyone. But one fun challenge of this is it makes it so no one understands me. In fact, I had to defend my approach to religion to the Humanist Society, the religious group that endorses me as a humanist chaplain. So that's kind of funny. But I see religion as a very powerful human cultural technology. Let me get this going if I can. I'll share my screen first. That should work. Okay, everyone can see that? It was fun. I like the subtitle, Getting Religion to Serve You, since the idea of religion is serving God, so I enjoyed that playfulness. Okay, I really enjoyed putting this together. This is a flow chart to see in what way you can best engage with religion. Start here. So first, are you human? That's the first softball question. If you're not, please do let me know in the Q&A. One of my favorite headlines of all times was Elon Musk says aliens are already among us. He's not one of them. Sure, that's what you'd say if you were an alien trying to save us from ourselves. But if you are human, that means that religion works on you. And I taught a course on the future of religion, and my epiphany was that what the world needs so much is not so much a new religion. So of course I founded one, but needs a new approach to religion. And so my nonprofit, the Olam Institute, focuses on engaging with a religion in a way that everyone can benefit. So do you attend traditional religious services? Probably not most of us, but maybe some of us. So if you attend religious services, make your religion better. We'll talk about that in a moment. If you don't attend religious services, do you crave community? Most of you, since you are here on a Sunday, I imagine, yes, you do crave community. If you don't crave community, I'm glad the pandemic's working out for you. And we'll talk about how you yourself as an individual can benefit from the power of religion, or the religion of you. If you do crave community, but you don't attend a traditional religion, you're in a really tricky situation, and that is why Oasis was founded. We need to find a replacement or religion, but what can that be? So let's take a step back. What is religion? What is religion for? One thing that challenges and motivates me is liberals have good ideas and conservatives get things done. I don't think that library community programs will ever overtake the world, unfortunately. And it's really sobering. I'm thinking about Jonathan Haidt's work especially, but it's really Richard Sosis as well, that these really amazing institutions like Oasis and Humanism, I just don't think we're ever going to take on Catholicism, I'm afraid to say, but we can do our best. Let's take an even bigger step back, because if we're talking about why religion and how we can engage with religion, we need to talk about what is life for? You know, what is the purpose of life? What are people for? What is the point? I have found that a really nice dodge from nihilism is to look at us as social groups. From an evolutionary perspective, a key purpose of life is to thrive in the midst of a group in the face of chaos and adversity. E.O. Wilson, Yuval Harari, and others have talked about the fact that what makes us as humans distinct is we can cooperate flexibly in large groups. We are the only animal on the planet that can cooperate flexibly and in large groups. Insects cooperate in massive groups, but not flexibly. You know, bees will never form a coup against the queen, they're clones. Did anyone else see that the killer wasps have made it to the US? They tear apart hives of bees. I'm really worried about that. But Yuval Harari has taught me that even this idea that the purpose of life is to cooperate is its own myth. And he makes a very powerful argument that we as humans are also the only animal who can imagine things that don't exist and then make it exist. And I describe our current moment as a race to the death between innovation and cataclysm. I'm on team innovation. And I actually think this is one way where the COVID-19 pandemic could be the best possible outcome, because the current pandemic is World War III. But instead of us bombing each other, we are shoring up hospitals and making masks for each other and working on vaccines. So us as the human race against a vaccine, I think hopefully will mobilize us before it's too late. We need to take very seriously the fact that life is too complex and overwhelming and tragic for any one of us to navigate alone. Asking someone to thrive without religion or the ingredients of religion is like asking them to invent their own language. Okay, now some bad news. The bad news is that nature does not give a crap about your well-being. The target of nature, Richard Dawkins talks about this in The Selfish Gene. Nature only cares about genes. It doesn't care about individuals, and it only cares about survival, not thriving. So for example, I'm sure nature is thrilled by the success of chickens. My 11-year-old looked up how many chickens there are in the world. There are like 25 billion, and we keep eating them, but they're not happy. You know, shocking, even the ones that aren't thrown into a wood chipper when they're babies, like male chicks are. So nature is like, have you seen chickens? I mean, these are the most successful species ever, so many chickens, and yet they're miserable. And so we as humans are in a similar situation where we can survive, and our systems, like our current global systems, the current global religion is exploitative consumerism. You are already aware of that. And another cautious, cynical optimism that I have is that the pandemic will lean on our systems so heavily that it will break them if we don't actually take care of ourselves. I imagine most of you have heard the quote, "The system is not broken, it's yeah, acting precisely the way it was intended to. So for example, I work at prison, and prison runs on slave labor. And as soon, in fact, government institutions are required to use slave labor in their bids for making furniture, printing, and so forth. So our current exploitative, unequal, consumerist religion in the world today wants indentured servants. It wants us to be in a situation where we can pay our bills, but we are forever in debt. And it's doing a really good job. So again, I call my current approach redeemed realism. Stay with me, it gets better. Where it's a very courageous, unflinching description of the way things are. And then we talk about how to make it better. When I taught world religions, I would help students opt in to the class by challenging them on the first day of class. Can you name any aspect of culture more powerful than religion? And if they could name any cultural institution more powerful than religion, I would give them an A. And I would say, you never need to come back. You have an A, bye. No one was ever able to, because there has never been a more powerful cultural institution than religion. Nationalism comes close, family comes close, but nationalism brings in the power of religion. And when family and religion fight, we see a lot of that in Utah. Enough said. So I'm going to be talking about religion as a cultural technology. And how you can benefit from it no matter what you believe. Again, this is the point of my ministry, the point of my nonprofit work. And we'll talk about the function of the sacred. Basically, the purpose of taboo and the purpose of sacred is to flag those aspects of human experience that overwhelm our thinking abilities. One reason why sex is a really big deal is because it can mean anything. It can mean anything or nothing. So even when you get consent 101 down, different people are thinking different things about what it means, so it's tricky. So cultural technology has flagged these aspects. Taboos focus on life, death, reproduction, relationships, and so forth, these really, really big explosive aspects of the human experience. And they say, hold on, be careful, or it's going to blow up in your face. Insert comment about presidential candidates here. So problems and paradoxes. First, take human nature seriously, take religion seriously. One of the big problems about being human is we are an apex predator, but only in large groups. So we are an apex predator with an inferiority complex. That is maximally bad. And that is why we behave with fear. So the problem with current religion is that nothing motivates more powerfully than current religion. Islam is the fastest growing worldview. Pew did a survey, and in 2050, there is going to be more religious people by percentage than now. And if culture collapses, is religion going to get stronger or weaker? It's going to get stronger. So we need to take religion very, very seriously. And one of the most challenging things is that religiosity, religious engagement, correlates with wellness, individual and collective wellness, again, better than anything else, and yet at a very high cost. So this is what motivated me to found the Olam Institute, and this is the vision of my nonprofit. And I'll talk about my nonprofit work as a framing for what we're talking about, and then I'll open it up to question and answers. So this is the best attempt that I am engaging in. Religious humanism, informed by social science, reverse engineers religion, translates it into culturally specific narratives, and aims it at individual and collective well-being and the world's urgent problems. My ministry experience and life experience has taught me that the most precious resource is motivation. Insert your swear word of choice here. It's hard to give a motivation. We have enough resources right now to heal the world. We have enough resource. I mean, Jeff Bezos single-handedly could fix most of the problems in the world, and yet we're not motivated. Now, that is too much individual blaming, because the actual truth is that we are as good as we are incentivized and empowered to be. And it's pretty much our systems that are doing the incentivization and the empowerment. And we are seeing this at a crisis point with COVID-19, because the degree to which we are able to relationship and work and help, it's all constrained by these systems that are buckling and even breaking underneath the pressure of this unsustainable system. So tagline, through religion done better, religious humanism fosters individual and collective well-being and aims to heal the world. And that's one reason why people can't quite understand me, because I am a religious humanist chaplain. And my main goal is to move through the world as a humanist minister and be able to move through pretty much any space where traditionally religious people go and do well. So what is religion? Religion is, this is my definition, a religion is a cultural system of interconnected belief and ritual. You have beliefs about the rituals that make the rituals more powerful in the context of community with reference to transcendent ideals. Now, ask the IRS, not the Supreme Court, one current paradox and tension with religion in our culture is that the Supreme Court has not made an official definition of religion. The IRS has a really nice definition of religion, because the IRS is the one that needs to determine whether you can be tax exempt or not. The Alam Institute, I don't know if Oasis, I think it is. Oasis is tax exempt. I don't think Oasis is counted as a religion though. Is it? Are you qualified as a religion? Do you know?
No, just 501c3.
Yeah, super interesting. So on purpose, I deliberately made the Alam Institute a 501c3 religious organization so that I could benefit from the advantages of religion with reference to transcendent ideals. Now, why hasn't the Supreme Court laid out a definition of religion? Because it would break religion. This is one of the biggest paradoxes, is that religion only works at full force when you don't know how it works. Sorry, I'm going to spoil it, and I'm going to talk about how it works. Let's break down what the ingredients of religion are. So a cultural system is wisdom way older than you. You know, that's what traditional wisdom is. It is the wisdom of generations and generations and generations. Beliefs are the way that we make sense of the world, which is a fundamental need of humanity. We need narratives, we need stories. In fact, one thing I've learned through ministering with the imprisoned and dying is that the stories, which are lies functionally, the stories we tell about ourselves are more important than our lives. We will die rather than admit we're wrong, most of us, unless we cultivate the ability to be wrong. Ritual is meaningful routines and actions. Community gives us belonging. And transcendent ideals, it's not just about you. It's plugging into something bigger. All of us, no matter how we feel about religion, even if we're allergic to religion, we all have our favorite bits of religion. Alain de Botton gave a really good TED Talk, Atheism 2.0, about this. He has the School of Life, which is absolutely fantastic. I have realized that not only do I need to found a seminary, I need to found a monastery and establish a humanist order of monks, because that's the only thing that pushes all of the human buttons and engages the whole human experience. So what about the dark side? We need to talk about the dark side of religion. And this is where a lot of liberal progressive institutions fail. I think Unitarian Universalism is great. Unitarian Universalism is the largest humanist group in the world, and yet doesn't give much to fight about. So what the hell? I don't know if anyone has seen Come Sunday on Netflix, but it's about this megachurch pastor who has a revelation that hell doesn't exist in the traditional sense, that hell is here and now, which I believe, and he lost almost everyone. So one of the paradoxes of human nature is that we are most motivated by the ugly stuff. I saw some protesters at the Utah State Capitol the other day with their rifles and camo. Yeah, interesting stuff. So we need to take very, very seriously the fact that even the most lovey-dovey of us, we still have that tribalism built into us, evolved into us, because it's a survival mechanism. And so, for example, fear-based motivation is 2.5 times more powerful than reward seeking. And that, if you imagine hunting, if you underextend yourself, you're hungry. If you overextend yourself, you're dead. Elitism, in-group, out-group, we all want to think we're special. And religion, have you ever heard Catholic last rites? They are bold. Religion teaches you that you are cosmically important and you are special. Now, the beautiful humanist truth is that you are cosmically important and you're special. I mean, as best as we know, you are more conscious than a black hole. Which, you know, that's amazing. But all of these elements of fiction, lying, patriarchy, hierarchies, elitism, tribalism, in-group, out-group, it's built into us. And so I suggest that instead of avoiding it, we use it, we harness it. And that's what I said when I had to defend myself to the Humanist Society. I responded, isn't religion just as human as every other aspect of culture? With my man, Dr. Harari. So reverse engineering religion. These are the solutions that I've come up with, and then we'll make it about you. We'll make it personal. So religion better than true. I've done a LDS-based Sunday school podcast for 8 years, and it models religion better than true. A lot of people want to reform and change and update religion. This is Pope Francis washing the feet of, I don't think this is the prisoner one, but just amazing. He's such an amazing example of Catholicism. So the perfect target for religion is religion that is demonstrably good enough for an atheist to support it and remains recognizable enough for a believer to claim it. Do you see how that works? I've just fixed 85% of the world. So again, religion better than true is religion so demonstrably good that it doesn't need to rely on its truth claims to justify its investments. Because this is why religion is unethical for the most part. This is why nationalism is unethical, is because ideologies say this is true, like your job is more important than your life, which is a current myth that we're hearing right now. Therefore, you need to do this particular thing. And so religion, especially the big ones, say, in order for you to get into heaven, you need to live in this particular way. But, you know, they're relying on their truth claims. The dominant religion of Utah is very, very good at this. So again, if every religion could be so demonstrably good that atheists can support it and yet remain claimable for a believer, that would be win-win, and that would bring world peace. So reverse engineering number 2. I'll go into this in depth, but this is for those people who don't necessarily want a community and they don't want that whole group experience. And so this is, I call it the spiritual training regimen. And this is leveraging the ingredients of religion with intention, mindfulness, consistency, and accountability. You basically hack your brain because our brains are evolved to work with religion. And so by hacking those, by incorporating the elements, the ingredients of religion, you will become a better human being, no matter what you believe. It's a fun trick. So reverse engineering 3, this is the most ambitious thing that I'm doing with my life, is I want to design humanist denominations that could compete with Islam or Catholicism. Because that is the big thing that we're missing in these progressive institutions, is we are missing these specific narratives and rituals and so forth. So Life Church, I consider myself a lifist. Life Church religionizes art, culture, education, and so forth. Earth Church religionizes outdoors culture, worship of nature, neo-paganism, indigenous elements, and so forth. And then Geek Church religionizes popular culture. So I'll give you a taste of geek culture. This is a presentation that I presented to at FanX, and this is the wording of the presentation. It says, "Can made-up stories save the world for real? You may not be aware, but geekdom is a pretty damn big deal. People memorize the languages from Lord of the Rings and Star Trek. Not only do people have Star Wars themed weddings and children's names, but so many Australians declared themselves to be Jedi that the atheists complained it threw off their numbers." That really happened. That's true. The Harry Potter books have contributed to millions of children loving reading, and those Marvel movies have made over $20 billion. But what is the point of all of this? Could we do more? Could we use these powerful stories to improve our own lives and even save the world? This presentation invites you to explore your relationship to popular culture in a way that will help you become a better human being, even a hero. Who is your hero guide? What would Hermione do? Which characters represent your strengths and weaknesses? Which passages of books or comics function as scripture for you? What would be on your geek altar? By adding ritual, mindfulness, and consistency to your engagement with popular culture, you can become like the heroes you admire. And so this is my motivation, is using the power of religion to leverage it with well-being. And like my own hero guide, I have my Professor X cufflinks. Professor X is my hero guide. I love the fact that Professor X's actual power is not using his powers. If you've seen Logan, you know how important that is. And I really love this line from Days of Future Past, where Professor X, where he's talking, his younger self is talking to his older self, which is a really great ritual. And he says, the greatest gift we have to give is to bear their pain without breaking. And to bear pain without breaking is a really good summary of ministry and being a good human being. So benefiting from religion, how do you, each of you, however you are, benefit from religion? Well, what you do is you figure out your own sacred texts, sacred music, sacred space, sacred time, sacred self, sacred belonging, and sacred service. Remember that the purpose of the sacred is to mark and delineate certain aspects of the human experience as special and different. And with Buddhism and other traditions, you can go all the way down to the rabbit hole and to say everything is sacred. As Avraham Herschel said, just to be is a blessing, just to live is holy. And that's how I feel as a religious humanist, is that consciousness, being conscious, being alive, is a miraculous privilege and therefore sacred. So what we need to do, take a moment as I go through this next stage of the presentation, be thinking to yourself, what is your scripture? What passages and books most inspire and motivate you? What myths and stories most resonate with you? What would be included in your own personal canon? And then you have that consistency and accountability where you say, okay, I'm going to pick this book and I'm going to read from it 5 minutes a night. You get scripture study back. My personal scripture is Consolations by David White. It is in a powerful collection of devotions and essays. And I have other ones. Okay, sacred music. What music most inspires you? What music helps you meditate and center yourself? What music evokes particular emotional reactions? Which music communicates your identity? So I am all about soundtracks. Like Skyrim is one. My current song on repeat is Merlin's Staff from Transformers: The Last Night. It is just amazing. As I do my work, I will just listen to that on repeat. Hans Zimmer is my choir master, as far as my own religion. Like I love, love, love Hans Zimmer. So again, isn't it interesting and tragic that you yourself don't know the answer to these questions until you think to ask? And this is what I mean when I say wellness and thriving exists beyond preference. If you just float through life, you will never know yourself to the degree that we can. That's a big thing hospice has taught me, is that most of us go through our entire lives without knowing ourselves or the people that we are close to. Sam Harris has this really beautiful meditation, It Is Always Now. And he says, we are idle, that's my word, but we go through life trying to avoid life, and the tragedy is we mostly succeed. So sacred space, where do you feel the most yourself? Where do you recharge, access your better self? And so in your own house, I recommend setting up a little altar. My son just came home from Utah State and he wanted to move the television into the living room. And I said, I don't want there to be a television in the living room. I like my books in the living room. I very, very purposely do not want a television in the living room. So sanctuaries, and then we can also have retreats and pilgrimages. So on my bucket list is I want to visit famous libraries and cathedrals. Some of you will recognize what's on the screen. This is the Yale Divinity Library reading room. I just get chills when I see that. Also, did you know that Alexa is named after the Library of Alexandria, which is pretty cool. Okay, sacred time. This is the pagan calendar, which lines up evolutionarily with our climate. I was filling out an application and I wanted to put Viking as my race, but that probably wouldn't go over well. One thing that we can do, and I would strongly recommend that you do this, is that you implement daily, weekly, yearly, and lifetime rituals. Just recently, so one of the most powerful things you can do is right when you wake up and before you go to bed, hold your chest and your stomach, take a deep breath, breathe out, and then say something you're grateful for. I also hold my breath all the time and then release it. And that's the way to turn yourself off and on again. Versions of self. On Leap Day, I drove 150 miles to jump in a lake. I designed a rebirth ritual and it worked. It was amazing. So sacred self. I pray to my true self often. What is your best self? One thing I'm working on is don't push yourself forward with goals. Imagine or discern your best self and allow that best self to pull and invite and inspire you forward. What you resist persists. This is why weight loss companies make so much money, because when we focus on a problem, we make the problem worse. Just think about that. So ironically, when we set a goal, if we don't do it right, we actually prevent ourselves from achieving that goal. We get into this conflict-based relationship with it. So meditate on what are your highest values. So for example, I have integrity tattooed to my arm, and integrity is my highest value. I focus on living with proper form, and I have found that if I focus on living with proper form, I feel peace no matter what happens. And that's a huge accomplishment. What are your commandments? The Humanist Society has 10 commitments that are really lovely. What do you want to be known for? How do you want to be remembered? What is your best self like? What is your purpose? I love this term, ikigai, which is a Japanese term for the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. And I understand that that is a consumerist, work-based model of life fulfillment, but it's one that takes up a lot of our lives. So sacred belonging and sacred service. Meditate on these questions. What is your relationship to your family? I invested in my family much more after I got divorced. Again, that pesky human nature. Who is your family of choice? Who is your tribe? I tend to experience romantic relationships as home, and being single, I have had to confront that, and it's been very beneficial. I am working on being my own home. This is one of the greatest quests of life, is become your own greatest love and become your own sanctuary and become your own home. It is a tragic paradox that we are the ones who spend all the time with ourselves, and yet too often we don't love ourselves adequately. As a rule, we don't love ourselves adequately. Our entire global economy is based on us not loving ourselves adequately. So who do you confide in? Who could you count on for pretty much anything? I hope that all of us can increase the amount we can count on ourselves, and that we have at least one person in our life that we could call at 2 a.m. for anything. And then service, how are you caring for yourself around you? How do you invest in others? By the way, Oasis community can implement these same principles to increase the power and effectiveness. So this is the last slide, and then we can open it up to questions and answers. In conclusion, I invite all of us to meditate on our relationship with the ingredients of religion. And I know that a lot of us have a negative reaction to the idea of religion, but again, it's just an aspect of human culture. So think about the religion of your heritage. One of the great blessings of serving as a chaplain, chaplain and minister are the same thing, is that I have a much more integrated, calm relationship with pretty much all religions, including Mormonism. So having a healthier relationship to the dominant religion in Utah would be useful. What is your relationship to near religions? And Yuval Harari has actually taught me that things like the military, academia, government, sports are not near religions. They are just actual religions. And then again, what is your relationship to these religious elements? And I have found it true in my life, and I encourage all of you, that if you incorporate these elements of religion that we're talking about, which are just elements of being human, you will unlock keys to thriving. So in summary, I hope that all of us can make religion our own.